World War I, unfolding from 1914 to 1918, was an imperialist struggle between two massive power blocs aimed at remapping the world and seizing global hegemony. Throughout this conflict, both sides mobilized a staggering total absolutely 3.51 million soldiers to the front lines. A total of 33 nations were drawn into the fray, with the Allied powers led by Great Britain, France, and Russia commanding approximately 47.8 million troops. On the other side, the Central Powers, spearheaded by Germany and Austria-Hungary, fielded around 25.11 million soldiers. Nearly 1.5 billion people were swept up in the chaos. 9 million soldiers and 30 million civilians lost their lives, while 21 million people were left wounded. The number of prisoners and the missing neared 6 million, and the economic devastation wrought by the war climbed to $270 billion, inflicting genocidal material and psychological scars on humanity. So, how did this cataclysm begin, and how did it finally end? Let's dive into the history. Starting in the 1870s of the 18th century, global capitalism began transitioning into its monopoly capitalism stage. Due to the uneven political and economic development among capitalist nations, friction between imperial powers grew increasingly sharp. Between 1870 and 1880, the great imperial powers ignited a wave of global partitioning. Beyond early developers like Britain, France, and Russia, rising nations such as Japan, the United States, and Germany joined the scramble for colonies. By the close of the 19th century, nearly the entire world had been carved up by the imperial titans. Countless nations and regions became colonized or semi-colonies, completing the imperialized colonial system. Against this backdrop of a fully divided world, the lopsided growth, the great powers created a powder keg. In France and Russia held the lion's share of colonies and populations, while newly resident states, especially Germany, demanded a much larger place in the sun. This sparked fierce rivalries with Britain, France, and others. These tensions pushed the imperialist conflicts to a breaking point. By the late 19th, early 20th centuries, several key rivalries existed: Anglo-German, Franco-German, Russo-German, and Russo-Austrian. Among these, the Anglo-German rivalry was the primary driver. The British Empire had established colonial dominance very early on, possessing vast territories and market control. Germany, meanwhile, was a surging industrial powerhouse, growing at breakneck speed after the Second Industrial Revolution. By the early 20th century, Germany's industrial output had surpassed Britain's, yet in terms of raw materials and market reach, Britain still held an absolute advantage. To seize more colonies. Under the reign of Kaiser Wilhelm II, Germany aggressively pursued its world policy, bolstering its navy and seeking to challenge giants like Britain and France. This caused Anglo-German relations to deteriorate rapidly. Their rivalry was most visible in Germany's growing influence in the Middle East and Africa, as well as its control over strategic sea lanes. However, the Franco-German conflict was even more direct in 1870, during the Franco-Prussian War, as the German Empire was being unified. Prussia, the leading force in German unification, engaged in battle with France. In this war, France suffered a crushing defeat. On January 18, 1871, King Wilhelm I of Prussia was crowned German emperor, right in the palace of Versailles in France, while annexing the French provinces, Alsace and Lorraine, into German territory. This left the Franco-German relationship deeply scarred. Russia's relationship with Germany also saw many shifts. Since the early 18th century, when Russia, under Tsar Peter the Great, began expanding ties with the West, Russo-German relations fluctuated constantly. In the early 19th century, during the Napoleonic Wars, Russia and Prussia were allies against France. Continuing through Russia allied with Austria to form the Holy Alliance. In the latter half of the 19th century, economic ties between Russia and Germany were quite close. In the emperors of Russia, Germany, and Austria met in Berlin. The following year, the three monarchs signed the Schönbrunn Convention, known as the League of the Three Emperors. By the 1870s in the Balkan Peninsula, regions under the rule of the Ottoman Empire erupted in nationalistic uprisings against Turkish rule. The Slavic people in the Balkans actively joined the hoping to build their own nation-states. The situation in the Balkans quickly drew the attention and intervention of the great powers of Europe, particularly the Austro-Hungarian and Russian empires, both of which bordered the region. Russia, being a Slavic nation itself, hoped to establish the Slavic Federation in the Balkans, under its pretension to secure tight control over the straits leading to the Black Sea. Meanwhile, the Austro-Hungarian Empire feared that if a large Russian-backed Slavic state emerged on its border, its path for eastward expansion would be threatened. Tensions between the two escalated, and they turned to Germany, the remaining member of the Three Emperors League, for support. Germany, on the Balkan issue, sided with Austria-Hungary, causing Rusagerman relations to sour, and the League of the Three Emperors Tokalaps in 870-9. Germany exploited the friction between Austria-Hungary and Russia. Signed a secret military treaty with Austria-Hungary. If one side were attacked by Russia, the other must provide full military support. If one side were attacked by a power other than Russia, the other would remain neutral. Shortly after, Germany used the tensions between Italy and France over Tunisia to draw Italy into its military alliance. In 1882, Germany and Italy signed a treaty forming the Triple Alliance. It stipulated that if any one of the three were attacked by two or more powers, the other two would come to their aid. Additionally, Germany and Italy pledged mutual help if attacked by France. Germany was the core of this Triple Alliance and played a pivotal role, while Italy's position remained somewhat wavering. After Rusagerman relations cooled and the Industrial Revolution progressed, Russia needed foreign capital to build its railroads, while France was eager to export its capital. Thus, the French government used loans to bolster diplomatic ties between the two nations. 1892, France and Russia reached the Franco-Military Convention. The treaty made it clear: if France were attacked by Germany or its ally, Italy, Russia would use all its forces to attack Germany. If Russia were attacked by Germany or its ally, France would also use all its military power to attack Germany. The formation of the Franco-Russian alliance marked the beginning of a two-bloc military standoff in Europe. Meanwhile, Britain had long pursued its policy of splendid isolation. But, as the Anglo-German rivalry intensified, especially as Germany built up its navy, Britain felt an unprecedented threat and began seeking allies. Britain first signed the Anglo-Japanese alliance with Japan. In 1904, facing their common enemy, Germany, the friction between Britain and France began to ease. The two signed the Entente Cordiale in 1904, resolving colonial disputes. France recognized Egypt as a British colony, while Britain agreed to French control over Morocco. Furthermore, Britain and Russia had previously been at odds in the Near East and Far East. But after the Russo-Japanese War, Russia's weakened state made Britain less fearful. At the same time, Germany's plan for the Berlin-Baghdad railway not only challenged British interests but also threatened Russia's access to the Black Sea. Consequently, Britain and Russia found common ground against Germany. Old grievances were pushed aside. In 1900, and Russia signed the Anglo-Russian Convention to divide their spheres of influence. With the Franco-Russian Alliance, the agreements between Britain, France, and Russia, the Triple Entente was officially born, standing in opposition to the Triple Alliance. Once these treaties were finalized, the Triple Entente officially took shape to face off against the Triple Alliance. Thus, the stage was set for a showdown between two imperialists' military blocs. After these blocs formed, in their quest for global supremacy, both sides engaged in a frenzied military buildup, skyrocketing their defense budgets. By the time World War I broke out, the number of trained military personnel was Germany, around 4.9 million, France, around 4.06 million, Russia, around 6.5 million, Britain, around 1.2 million, Austria-Hungary, around 3.1 million. Over time, imperialist tensions only grew more acute. From 1905, Germany and France faced two major crises over Morocco. From 1908 to 19-0-9, when the Ottoman Empire faced revolution, Russia and Austria-Hungary exploited the situation to intervene, sparking the Bosnian Crisis off 19-0-8. Ultimately, under the mediation of European powers like Britain, France, and Germany, Austria-Hungary annexed Bosnia and Herzegovina. In 1911, Italy, aiming to seize Ottoman territory in North Africa, launched the Italo-Turkish War. The result, the Ottomans ceded Tripoli and Cyrenaica to Italy. This Ottoman defeat ignited national liberation movements in the Balkan Peninsula. Concurrently, independent Balkan nations like Serbia, Bulgaria, and Greece formed the Balkan League to oppose the Ottomans and actively support liberation movements of their ethnic kin. Russia also intervened under the guise of separate national movements. In October 1912, the members of the Balkan League declared war on the Ottomans, igniting the First Balkan War. This war ended in just weeks with a heavy Ottoman defeat. Afterward, the Ottomans held only a tiny slice of European territory around Istanbul. The rest was divided among Serbia, Greece, and other Balkan states. But the situation in the Balkans refused to settle due to the territorial ambitions of these states, coupled with agitation from the imperial powers standing behind them. The Second Balkan War soon erupted among the Balkan nations themselves. The two imperial blocs also sought local allies. Serbia, Montenegro, Romania, and Greece sided with the Triple Entente, while Bulgaria moved closer to the Triple Entente by Germany and Austria-Hungary. The two Balkan wars also fueled the liberation movements in Bosnia and Herzegovina, previously annexed by the Austro-Hungarian Empire. The people there demanded freedom from Austrian rule and unification with Serbia. Russia, seeking to expand its influence, backed Serbia. The Balkan crisis steadily escalated into a direct conflict between the two great military blocs, the Triple Entente and the Triple Alliance. The meddling of great powers in the Balkans, alongside regional ethnic conflicts, kept the area in a state where war could explode at any moment. For this reason, the Balkans were known as the powder keg of Europe. In the summer of 1914, the Austro-Hungarian Empire organized a military exercise in Bosnia. Archduke Franz Ferdinand arrived to inspect and command the drills. Afterward, on June 27, he and his wife traveled to the capital, Sarajevo, for an official visit. Franz Ferdinand was known for his hardline stance toward Serbia, which sparked great outrage among Serbian patriots. A secret Serbian military organization, the Black Hand, planned their assassination, setting up an ambush on the main streets of Sarajevo on June 28, 1914, as Franz Ferdinand and his wife rode through the city in an open-top car. They were shot and killed by a member of the Group 7 PRINCIP. This event shocked the world, becoming known as the Sarajevo Assassination. Following the Sarajevo event, the imperial powers immediately used it as a pretext to intervene. They exploited the situation to inflame tensions and seized the excuse to launch a war. On July 28, 1914, the Austro-Hungarian Empire declared war on Serbia. Russia, as Serbia's protector, immediately issued a general mobilization. Russia's ally, France, also declared its full support for Russia. Germany, as Austria-Hungary's ally, declared war on Russia on August 1st, and on France on August 3rd, simultaneously invading Belgium. This action directly prompted the United Kingdom to declare war on Germany. With that, World War I officially began. Once the war broke out, the fighting primarily occurred on two massive fronts. In Europe, the Western Front and the Eastern Front. Beginning in August 1914, German forces executed the Schlieffen Plan, modified just before the war, aiming for a massive offensive on the Western Front to quickly knock out France. However, this plan was halted by Anglo-French forces at the First Battle of the Marne. This was the first large-scale strategic battle of the war, involving over 1.5 million soldiers. After the Marne, Germany's lightning victory plan completely failed, forcing their withdrawal to the Aisne River defense lineage, resulting in a stalemate, compelling them to fight on two fronts. From September 15th to 18th, Anglo-French forces attacked the German lines but could not break through. From then on, both sides shifted from mobile warfare to trench warfare. On the Western Front from September to October, the British, French, and German armies engaged in the race to the sea. Between the Oise River and the English Channel, both sides tried to outflank the other, but neither succeeded. In late October, Germany launched the First Battle of Ypres. The two sides fought to a bloody standstill. Thus, the Western Front formed a line stretching from the Swiss border to the English Channel, entering the phase of trench warfare. On the Eastern Front, the Russian 1st and 2nd Armies launched an offensive into East Prussia on August 16th, but the 2nd Army was subsequently lassered and destroyed by the Germans. In September, Russian forces on the Northwestern Front attacked the German 8th Army but were defeated with heavy losses. While the Russian offensive failed, it forced Germany to divert its forces, relieving pressure on the Western Front simultaneously. Russia pushed Austro-Hungarian forces out of Lemberg, forcing a retreat to the Carpathian Mountains. On October 29th, the Ottoman Empire joined the Central Powers, further expanding the scale of the war, and subsequently engaged the United Kingdom in the Middle East. In early November, Austria-Hungary invaded Serbia. Additionally, in East Asia, Japan sought to expand its power and increase its encroachment on China, using then an Anglo-Japanese alliance as a pretext to declare war on Germania, August 23, 1914. By early November, Japan seized a German concession in Qingdao, Bajiaozhou Bay Area, along with the Marshall, Mariana, and Caroline Islands in the Pacific. In 1915, Anglo-French forces launched several offensives against Germany in northern Francheto, pushed them out of French territory, but were met with fierce resistance. In April, at the Second Battle of Ypres, German forces used poison gas on a large scale for the first time, violating the Hague Convention, inflicting heavy losses on the British and French. Thereafter, both sides began using poison gas extensively. In May, as the Western Front fell into a strategic defense, Germany shifted its focus to the east, aiming to defeat a relatively weaker Russia. Escaped the two-front war from May 2nd to June 22nd. German and Austro-Hungarian forces concentrated a massive forcedo, attacked the Russians in the Gorlice-Tarnow offensive in Galicia, leading to a crushing Russian defeat. Also in May of that year, Italy, originally part of the Central Powers after being promised territorial compensation by the Triple Entente, switched sides and signed the Treaty of London 1915, declaring war on Austria-Hungary and breaking ties with Germany, officially joining the Allied powers. In October of the same year, the Kingdom of Bulgaria witnessing the Russian defeat and Serbian struggle. Along with the Allied difficulties in the Gallipoli campaign, joined the Central Powers alongside Germany, Austria-Hungary, and the Ottoman Empire, defeating and occupying all of Serbia. However, despite the successes of the German-Austrian forces on the Eastern Front, they could not escape that Wu Front dilemma. Thus, Germany decided to concentrate its strength back on the Western Front. From February 21st to 25th, 1916, German forces concentrated their artillery, violently shelling the fortress of Verdun in northeastern France, using incendiary bombs and poison gas, and employing bombers for the first time in an assault. Germany launched wave after wave of attacks to break the French army there. Initially, the first French defensive line was shattered. The French government trusted 190 reinforcements, 25,000 tons of munitions, and 3,900 military vehicles to the front, appointing Philippe Pétain as the commander of the Verdun sector. Despite the relentless German attacks and some territorial gains, they could not capture Verdun, and by late August, were forced onto the defensive. On October 21st, the French launched a massive counteroffensive and, by December 18th, had recaptured all lost positions. The Battle of Verdun, considered the longest battle of attrition in World War I. 60-6, French divisions and 46 German divisions were rotated into the fight, totaling about 2 million soldiers with over 700,000 casualties. Due to its horrific bloodiness, this battle was dubbed the Verdun Meat Grinder. While Verdun was still raging, to relieve pressure on the French, the British and French launched a major offensive in July 1st, 1916, in the Somme River region. The battle lasted until November 18th, with the two sides locked in trench warfare on a narrow strip of land along the riverbanks. In this battle, the British introduced tanks to the battlefield for the first time, used coordinated aircraft support. Ultimately, the Anglo-French forces reclaimed about 180 square kilometers of territory from Germany. However, the Somme was also a horrific war of attrition, costing Britain, France, and Germany nearly 1.3 million soldiers, earning it the name the Somme Hell. To coordinate with the Allies on the Western Front, the Russian army on the Eastern Front, from June 4th to September 20th, 1916, launched its famous summer offensive, known as the Brusilov Offensive. Russian forces on the Eastern Front captured Litsk and Chernovitz, advancing 50 to 150 kilometers. This campaign cost the Austro-Hungarian Empire about 1.1 million troops, while Germany suffered about 350,000 casualties. It is regarded as Russia's most successful offensive of the First World War, yet Russia paid a heavy price with around 500,000 casualties, weakening its ability to continue the war. In June 1916, with British encouragement, Sharif Hussein of Mecca launched the Arab Revolt against the Ottoman Empire. This uprising liberated many regions in the Arabian Peninsula and Syria from Ottoman control. Simultaneously, British forces seized the chance to launch a general offensive against the Ottomans, causing the Ottoman situation in the Middle East to deteriorate rapidly. In early 1917, the February Revolution erupted in Russia. The Romanov dynasty fell. The Russian provisional government remained in the war and launched the Kerensky offensive, but it failed miserably. In February 1917, Germany declared unrestricted submarine warfare. This policy allowed German U-boats to attack any merchant vessel entering the watersore in Britain without warning, aiming to blockade the British Isles. However, this outraged the United States, a neutral national leaning toward the Allied cause. That same year, the U.S. severed diplomatic ties with Germany, and anti-German sentiment surged at home. After the Zimmermann telegram proposing a Mexican-German alliance to attack America was intercepted by the British and handed to Washington, U.S. public opinion reached a boiling point. On April 6, 1917, the United States officially entered the war, declaring war on Germany and Austria-Hungary, siding with the Triple Entente. Concurrently, the Republic of China under the Beijing government, at the invitation of the U.S., also declared war on Germany and Austria-Hungary, simultaneously the unequal treaties with both nations. China also reclaimed the accounts by Germany in Tianjin and Hankou. Subsequently, China joined the war through laborers in place of soldiers. sending over 100,000 workers to Europe to provide logistics for the battlefield. After the United States entered the fray. Aside from China, nations like Greece, Brazil, Thailand, Liberia, Cuba, Panama, Saudi Arabia, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Haiti, Honduras, and Costa Rica also directly or indirectly joined the Triple Entente. On November 7th, 19th, October Revolution broke out in Russia. After the revolution's victory, Vladimir Lenin established the world's first socialist state, the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic. To consolidate power, the newly formed Soviet government negotiated with the Central Powers to withdraw from the war. After 3 months of talks, Soviet Russia signed the Treaty of Brest-Litovsk, ceding about 1 million square kilometers of territory to Germany and officially exiting the war, effectively ending the Eastern Front. As a result, Germany could transfer its elite forces to the Western Front in March 1980. German forces massed on the Western Front to launch a final general offensive foray. U.S. forces could fully deploy, hoping for a decisive victory over the British and French. Germany mobilized over 190 divisions and launched major Operation Sock as the spring offensive of 1980, including attacks at the Somme and Marne. In some sectors, German troops broke the lines and even neared Paris, but ultimately failed to achieve a strategic breakthrough. Gand suffered massive casualties. Meanwhile, the Triple Entente was bolstered by American forces, growing stronger by the day. From July to September 1918, Anglo-French forces launched massive counterattacks, recapturing key areas, like the salients at the Marne and M.A.I.N, forcing Germany onto the defensive. U.S. forces also launched a major offensive in the south at the Battle of St. Mihiel, reclaiming the St. Mihiel salient held by the Germans. On September 5, 1980, Bulgarian forces were defeated, and by September 29, they surrendered to Triple Entente. On October 2, the Allies broke through the Hindenburg Line, dealing a devastating blow to the German army. Continuous military defeats pushed the German Empire into political crisis and collapsed. Within the German government, a new cabinet led by Max von Baden was formed. On October 4th, he sent a message to Woodrow Wilson proposing an armistice. On October 31st, 1918, the Ottoman Empire surrendered. On November 3rd, the Austro-Hungarian Empire also surrendered. On November 4th, the Allies presented 35 armistice terms to Germany. On the morning of November 11, 1918, at 5:02 a.m., German representatives signed the Armistice of Compiègne in a railway carriage in the forest of Compiègne, northeast of Paris. By 11 a.m. that same day, the ceasefire took effect on the Western Front. Thus, World War I, which had lasted for years, officially came to an end. After the war, the victors met at the Paris Peace Conference of 1919 in the Palace of Versailles. After much negotiation and compromise, they signed the Treaty of Versailles with Germany. Rendered this treaty and subsequent ones, the map of Europe was redrawn. The Austro-Hungarian Empire was dissolved. Austria and Hungary became two independent nations. Czechoslovakia and Yugoslavia were established. Romania gained territory from Hungary and Bulgaria, while the Baltic states of Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania gained their independence. Most of these newly formed nations had broken away from the Russian Empire. Poland also regained its independence, with territory including land formerly held by Germany, and a Polish corridor providing sea access at Danzig. France reclaimed Alsace and Lorraine, lost during the Franco-Prussian. Belgium and Denmark also received territory from Germany. Overall, under the Treaty of Versailles, Germany lost about 13% of its pre-war territory, and all its colonies were stripped away to become mandates under the Triple Entente. However, this territorial division failed to satisfy many nations. Many remained resentful of the newly established international order, sowing the seeds for future conflicts.